Marketing Manager here at TechExcel. Today we have the opportunity to hear from one of TechExcel's own customers, iRely. We get to hear what their needs were, how they chose TechExcel, and how CustomerWise was implemented with them within 90 days. We're very excited to hear from George Olney. Today's webinar will run about 45 minutes and conclude with a question and answer session. So I encourage all of you to use the question feature. It's generally located at the right-hand side of your screen. Just type in your question at any time, but we'll answer them all at the end of today's discussion. Now I'd like to introduce today's speaker, George Olney. He's the Chief Operating Officer of iRely. Welcome, George.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's good to be here. Today, what I'm going to go through with you is our experience with TechExcel and what's happened with us over the past 2 years. We've implemented approximately 2 years ago, so 2 years and 90 days this process began. So TechExcel in 90 days, so that's what we're going to talk about today. Just so you get a little background on us, we deliver enterprise software to the commodities industry, so we are a vertical software market, and we use CustomerWise to manage our inbound calls as well as bug management, as far as programming and bug management. So that's what we use TechExcel for. We do have off 5 countries and have close to 200 coworkers. So it's quite a disparate user set, and we're all using one database centrally. And we probably, have 2,400 calls a month, maybe a little higher than that. So that's kind of an idea of our volume. Cases, that is, not just pure calls, but cases. So we deliver the complete rainbow of services to commodities. So we like to call it farm to fork or dirt to spoon. So that's kind of what we do. And currently, we continue to acquire additional companies in the agribusiness. So as we bring these companies in, we fold them into the current product offering. And it's just a slide of where we are. We're in coffee, tea, cocoa, oats, wheat, barley, all that type of stuff. Me personally, I'm an operations guy. I grew up in Chicago and worked basically in steel mills and then moved into software after that. And one of my uncles was a manager of a steel mill, and when I was 5 years old, he took me on a tour of the blast furnace. That was his idea of babysitting. So I've been born into operations, and that's what I was meant to do, I think. So really, TechExcel has helped complement that because it gives me a metric to measure and a metric to identify how to do things. So I really enjoy working with the product. Really, when we look at TechExcel and an overview and what happened with this implementation, the big things for us is the quick implementation, the agility of TechExcel to be able to deploy the product to us quickly, for us to be able to just drop the product in without loss of momentum, especially in a call queue. We don't necessarily have a fat staff. We're extremely lean. And so because we're so lean, the loss of momentum or disruption that would be caused by an implementation of a solution would be devastating to our business. One thing that was important that the salespeople and the actual consultants helped us with was ensuring that we had clear objectives with our implementation. I think if you look at our implementation and you say you go into this thing without clear objectives, you will not do it in 90 days. There's absolutely no possibility. If you're worried about tab stops and mouse clicks, it's not going to work. You have to distill your objectives down to a few minimum objectives that will give you a return on investment. And for us, we kind of opened it up to our project team, and we started with 100 objectives. And out of those 100, we ended with 5 key objectives that were really the core to drive ROI, and we'll talk about those as we go on. But I think that if we tried to fit all the objectives right out of the gate of the software implementation, we would have delayed the implementation and lost a lot of the value that we got with the quick implementation. With our 5 key objectives, as far as recognizing calls, getting out of call queue very quickly, getting visibility to the web, reducing customer service time, getting visibility between our dev and operation systems and the call queue side. By enumerating those and just strictly focusing on those, it really got us, a good installation and made us pretty happy. So I think when we look at it, that was our idea. So the whole project started with the selection process, right? So the first thing that we did in January, February, and I think it was 11 or 12, was a couple of years back, was to pick a team to make a buy versus make decision. And as we started to review the depth of the TechExcel solution, we began to realize that our core business wasn't, help desk function, and that we wanted to ensure that we picked the best of breed solution, and we believed that we had done so with TechExcel. So, and it took us about 2 months to identify the key level requirements and distill it down to where we said, hey, look, this is not a make, this is a buy at this point. So this is huge for us. So what we did during that time when we were making the buy versus make decision was we did compile a list of vendors that we thought would be viable in the industry, and we compiled quite an extensive list. I mean, we looked at everything from Freshdesk to Salesforce Service Cloud, to various different systems, right? And it took us about 2 months to get all that together and to kind of whittle it down to a couple systems that we would pilot. So we took 2 systems and we set up a pilot before we bought. So we did an evaluation, a very deep evaluation with a scorecard before we piloted, or before we purchased. And that took us about a month for us to really get through a complete evaluation of the 2 products. What it allowed us to do was complete a model for a proof of concept, right, and pick a solution that we could go to advanced pilot with. And then by our mid-April, we did implementation and purchase of the software, and then trained in May and went live a week later. All of our heavy lifting was done before the purchase because we wanted to make sure that we did the due diligence and had the right solution and didn't go too far down the road with a solution that we'd already purchased that wouldn't meet our needs. And TechExcel was actually easily able to model that solution for us, so that was huge. Now, with that project time frame in mind, how do we get there, right? First thing we did was we picked a team, right? We have 3 groups that were stakeholders, right? We have a technical support group, we have a product support group, and we have a development group. So our technical support group does like integration to registers and hardware through serial port like scales, because we do offer weighing and point of sale solutions. And so we have a tech group that answers calls and helps people integrate to those hardware solutions. We have a support group that identifies questions and training issues, as well as drives product defects back to our development group. So we got stakeholders that were really going to drive the process from each of those 3 groups, right? And we made a team, we picked a team member that was actually working on that product, not a manager or anything, to become a product selection committee member. And we had those 3 people go through the pilot and do the evaluation in depth, right? So that was pretty huge. When you look at who we were looking at, right, this was a really time-consuming part of the process. It took a while to get people on board to actually, evaluate and push hard on these products. These are about 5 of the products that we looked at, and definitely, the clear winner was TechExcel amongst those. We did do a pilot on Smarter Tech, which was an interesting solution. It was kind of nice, but it was really too small. They didn't have an enterprise consulting group. Not that we wanted someone to actually come in and do all the work for us, but we just wanted experts on the product, and we didn't see it. It just seemed like a self-service app. And TechExcel had a really knowledgeable service staff that we could go to and ask any question, and it wasn't like I got an 8-hour turnaround time. It's like they knew what they were talking about. They understand the business process behind the actual function that I was trying to accomplish. So that was huge. But in our pilot, that's where there was a huge differentiator. And the other part of this was TechExcel offers nice extensive customer metaphor. Some of the help desks that you'll look at don't even have a customer metaphor, where there is no customer, it's just a ticket. So that was huge. Now, how do we evaluate these systems? We ended up with Front Range. We were piloting Front Range against TechExcel. How do we evaluate these systems? We ended up with a scorecard, right? And the scorecard scored on a couple of levels, and one was technology. It was imperative that we had a solution that was web deployable, because it just made it very simple for us to get the software to the people that needed it, especially when you're dealing over 3 or 4 countries. To be able to drop in a solution that's web-based and have collaboration across a wide array of people and countries is massive, because sometimes that's your only communication with the offshore resources. So that technology and the technology that TechExcel had was a key factor in our deployment. Quality of customer support, again, we talked about the professional services and support. It would be interesting, like the escalations happen to me, and in our experience has happened very quickly when we had an issue with things. So if we had an issue or a question and we were working with a frontline support person and they didn't exactly understand or they didn't have the exact answer, they would quickly escalate to a person that could answer our question and give us an adequate solution. So that was huge. The price was very competitive from a user perspective, per user perspective, so we were very happy with that. Usability was very good also. It was important for us to be able to have a product that you could learn relatively quickly, so the usability metaphor was huge for us with respect to the web-based application that they came to us with. Was huge. And then the final thing that was big for us was workflow, which became a key component of our solution. So the workflow engine, I think, of TechExcel has been integral in the speed of implementation as well as the benefit that we received from the product. These were the key requirements that we evaluated on, and we distilled all of the noise into these requirements and said, this is what's going to make our buy decision. And that really sped the buy process along. That was huge for us. Now, model for a POC or a proof of concept. Once we got 2 vendors down and we really knew what we were looking at, we went to an extremely extensive, detailed model. Because we build software, we understand, what the difference is between a demo and a pilot. And we went through an in-depth pilot on both systems where we set up all our customers and all our information and all our parameters into both systems, and then completed a pilot on both systems and measured which one worked best from a speed perspective, from an information perspective, from a ease of use perspective, and from a usability perspective. So that was huge for us. And whenever I think of this, that 2-week pilot, there were things we learned about TechExcel that we wouldn't have ever discovered in the sales cycle that really came clear. And a lot of them were positive. Like one thing we didn't consider was, could you just grab a piece of software, double-click on it, install it, and start running it? And we found with TechExcel, while the workflow does take time to set up, the benefit is huge. But the install process and the ability to drop it onto a machine and start using it is massive. And that's something we wouldn't have learned had we not done the POC. So for us, that proof of concept flushed out the fact that the other vendor really had to have people come in, set it up. There was a lot of technology requirements like terminal server and stuff like that. So it was huge for us from the perspective of speedy implementation. The one thing I'm always reminded of, the joke is like, and this, whenever I go back to this experience of the install and the pilot versus a demo, I'm reminded of this joke about Bill Gates dying and going to heaven, and he sees St. Peter, and St. Peter says, hey, Bill, you've been such a good guy, we're going to let you choose between heaven and hell. Bill Gates goes, looks at heaven, and it's nice, everybody's seated, and everybody's polite, it's a very nice place, and then St. Peter takes him down to hell, and he sees it, and it's a party. And everybody's having fun, and it's good times, and everything was good. And so Bill Gates says, hey, look, I'm going to go with hell. And St. Peter says, great. And he goes down, and he sees there's, when he gets sent to hell, and he goes there, there's gnashing of teeth, there's horrible things. And St. Peter says, he goes back to St. Peter, says, what happened here? I saw hell, and it looked pretty good. And St. Peter says, yeah, that was the demo version. So when you really do it, when you get into the proof of concept, you're going to see things that you don't see in the demo that really help you. And with TechExcel, the demo plays close to the proof of concept, so it was pretty cool. That was huge for us. Where did TechExcel win when we went through our detailed POC? They won on the following metrics. One was workflow, right? Workflow is a huge element when you're trying to manage a complex process. Now, the other benefit of TechExcel is even though the workflow engine became complex with TechExcel, it's able to point out the complexity of our process and identify where there were difficult steps in our process that should be eliminated, and it allowed us to clean up our workflow and pull all kinds of steps out of our workflow. So we would have QC iterations, we would have QC steps. One thing that I remember, key in the decision was in the workflow process at TechExcel, there's a history screen on the transaction, and the history lets you see the full workflow and the history of the workflow. So if something iterates between QC and it iterates back to development and QC and development over and over and over, you can start to see those processes. That has helped us clean up and actually make organizational changes based upon how we were perceiving the workflow in our company with using the workflow from TechExcel setup. And if any of you guys are unfamiliar with workflow, what it does is it actually routes transactions dynamically through the system to people based upon steps that need to be followed. So workflow was a huge, huge benefit to us. Second thing was ease of setup. I mean, when you can drop a system in, double-click on the EXE, set up SQL Server, and we are a SQL Server development shop, so that made a huge difference. When you can drop in a product and use it, it's massive, right? The other piece that we liked was the sales supportability. You can run CRM out of that. We really liked that ability, and we thought out of one place that was huge. So, we looked at that, and that was a big benefit. The customer portal, the quick customer portal, where you can actually set up a customer portal and expose parts of the help desk that you're interested in exposing to the customer and actually have the customer automate the process from the front end and do the work of telling you where the problem is in a written document is huge. Massive benefit of the customer portal. If you don't have a customer portal, it's really crazy, because what it does is it enforces that the customer gets you the right information, because you can require fields and make them pick things. It enforces when the customer really got the call. So you could start to say, oh, really, you logged this call on Monday and you got a response 2 hours later. That's the fact. It wasn't that long. If you have a customer portal, the time that the customer actually entered the call is recorded, and you can go back to them with service reports. I mean, that is massive for us. We have customers call all the time and say, our service has been slow. And what I do is I go into TechExcel, I pull up reports on their service, and I can say, really, because over the past 3 months, your average call response and resolution time was an hour and a half, and over the past years, that's trended from 3 hours to an hour and a half. So maybe an hour and a half is not the greatest, but it's massive improvement for a res time of an issue. It's beautiful. So the portal, by tracking the initial event, gives you a time frame to start service tracking. It gives the customer a real viable metric to say how long it takes for them to close issues. The next thing is, the next huge POC concept result that we found was the cost of services. When we did the POC, TechExcel, we pretty much didn't use much of their services, but the other vendor, we used a massive amount of services to do their own setup. And then when we got the product installed, we didn't necessarily know how they set it up, so we couldn't configure it. With TechExcel, we were way quicker through the pilot because we did all the setup on our own because it was relatively intuitive. There was user manuals, all that kind of stuff. So that was huge in speeding our implementation and decision. And we probably did more piloting in TechExcel and cheated on the other vendor because of the difficulty of setup. Cost of services, like I said, massively different because of the quality of the resource and because of the quality of the product. So, and then at the end of the game, right, we had our implementation team vote on it, and we did get a unanimous vote to go for TechExcel. There was not really many dissenters. Now that was an interesting vote because there were many people that were really against moving the call queue from the existing system and such, and we thought, oh my gosh, and there were a couple friends at the competitor, so it was like an inside job where they were pretty tight, and the competitor did not get it. TechExcel got the business, so it was a really interesting deal, a really quick deal, and they did a really good job for us. When you talk about pilot and advanced pilot, we did do an advanced pilot after we selected TechExcel. So we had done this pilot of 2 systems. After we picked TechExcel and we purchased, we said, let's go with the final go-live testing and review of workflow. So that advanced pilot, we really deep dived and really did our training and kind of pre-review of the solution before we accepted and took it on. So that was huge. We did select a series of features to defer also. What we did was we said, look, we want to get this thing in fast because that's the big bang of the benefit of getting the portal up, getting people acclimated quickly, getting service level agreements in. Let us defer some of the features that are good but not required for the customer into a second phase of the project. This was a huge element that allowed us to speed our implementation of the product because we didn't waste our time with features that might have derailed the product and didn't give us the ROI that we were looking for. So that was huge. In the advanced pilot, why we did it and why we did it so deep was comfort of the team. When we purchased the product, the team became very comfortable with it and did a very deep dive so that when they went live, it was as if they were running the system for weeks. So that was huge. Data conversion was great. I mean, we have SQL databases. Our old call queue was in SQL, so it wasn't that bad. Some of our old call queue was manual, so that was type in. That was bad. But data conversion and testing was huge because we were able to quickly integrate data from SQL databases and CSV files, and TechExcel had their import utilities together really well, which were invaluable because it's like a party pattern database. So it would be really hard to inject SQL data directly into the database, and it was really best if you use their API, and that was huge for us. So that's massive. The other thing that we did to engage the customer was a Mach Go Live. We did a Mach Go Live with TechExcel, which was huge because that flushed out a bunch of issues where we kind of did parallel on a couple things. So that was a huge benefit for us. After that advanced pilot, we did go to a purchase where we wrote the check to TechExcel, and my CEO was begging me to buy after we showed them the advanced pilot. I mean, that was the easiest decision I made. There wasn't a board meeting or anything like that. I basically demoed our new call queue to the CEO, and he was drooling for it. I mean, there was people going crazy. Our customers we involved in some of the selection process were also drooling to get this product to them. Our service reps were pretty scared because this was a major change for them or major jump for them. So that was a problem for us. And then you know, from my respect, I was good to go. I was pretty much happy because I knew we had done our due diligence and we were piloting, but I thought that was pretty easy. I was smiling. The go live was easy, right? There was no issues, minimal overhead. This was the easiest go live I went through. We did data conversion. We spent about 4 or 5 hours data converting. We checked back to the old system. We ran a few pilots on a Friday night. You know, we started the conversion with a couple people at about 6 o'clock. By 10 o'clock, we had tied out all our stuff. And we went home and we came on Monday morning and everything was cool. So it was a really easy go live. We didn't experience any problems. You know, and frankly, through the whole process, you know, we write custom software, and 2 years ago, you know, we were less advanced than we are now. 4 years ago, we were way less advanced. But TechExcel is in the elite group of saying, look, there aren't a lot of bugs. I don't remember many bugs, if any. When we went through the system, it was just a matter of getting our processes right, not dealing with bugs through the system. So that was, you know, that was massive from that respect. You know, the challenges that we look at, you know, and what really was trouble was to select and deploy a system. You know, that's huge, right? That's a huge challenge, right? We were moving from a homegrown system that was not workflow based. So, you know, the element of the homegrown system that was attractive was whatever people wanted and however they wanted to work, they got it. And TechExcel was able to mirror that with workflow and their screen configuration utilities, where you can actually lay the screen out to capture the data you want and hide the data you don't want. So that was huge. Customers split over 10 time zones in an automated workforce. That's a big challenge for implementing a help desk. So, we have customers split all over the world, so that help desk is always live, and we needed high availability and high scalability, which we got. So that was huge. We did not have a self-service customer portal before TechExcel, so we noted extreme benefit from going to a customer self-service portal. That really helped us get stuff done quickly because our customers were doing some of the logging, and we could triage the item to the appropriate person very quickly before anybody worked on it. Before we had the web, we'd have to answer on the phone, figure out what the problem was, and then route the call to the appropriate person. When you know attributes of the call before you route it, you ensure that the right person answers the call. The value of that is the speed at which the call is answered, which increases the credibility you have because you put the right person in front of the customer the first time. That's huge for us. That no customer service portal was a massive challenge that was addressed by our system. No system controls of the status of items, right? There were no system controls to say, hey, you need to go through this check before you close the case, or the customer needs to check before you close the case, or anything like that. That was not there. Escalating issues became easy with TechExcel. We could have automatic escalations and emails when certain times were violated and all that stuff. Huge benefit for us, huge benefit for us. And then within our system, there was no way to properly find bottlenecks inside our system. With TechExcel, we've really managed, here is how the system lays out, right? Here are the steps that you need to go through. And within those steps, how many times are we getting stuck at a specific step, and how much time do we spend at that specific step? If you watch TechExcel, every single step is tracked from a time and responsibility perspective. So you can do great comparisons on analytical data to derive who in your organization is appropriately and effectively working and who's ineffectively working. When you look at our elimination of bottlenecks over the past 4 years, we have increased our customer count and volume by almost double. And we've been in business 26 years, so we've massive increase in number of customers. It's not like we went from 2 to 4. We've doubled a massive customer base, and we've reduced our support staff dramatically, almost 40%. So huge decrease in support staff, making them more effective and giving them better ability to address our problems. So that was a huge challenge that we had, but that's been that's been addressed by TechExcel as the way to find bottlenecks and track how long something had been in the process. Uptime, we were at 95% uptime over our prior system because sometimes it would go down from maintenance, we'd have issues, all that type of stuff. We needed 99% uptime. In TechExcel, we got it, right? We had huge uptime benefits, so that was huge. Handoff between development and support. This is one element that was greatly impacted by TechExcel, where case transfer and routing could be easily done between support and development. And what that allowed us to do is, and visibility to the customer was greatly enhanced. So when we would have a support call and we'd escalate to development in the past, there was no viable way for us to do that. And then for support to track the status of the development item, let alone the customer. The way it happened in the past was when we actually logged a call and it needed to get escalated to development, we took it out of our call queue and we put it into a development system. The way it works now with TechExcel is when we move a call from development to the development queue, it's a matter of clicking a button and the status is tracked and visible to both the service rep as well as the customer. So that's a massive benefit for us and a challenge addressed. The one thing I've talked about before and that I want to go back to again, a demo environment on our server was essential, and TechExcel gave us a drop of their product where we could just install and run. And that was huge. If you can't demo on your servers with the product, that's very interesting, because how hard is the product to install? TechExcel is easy. They can give you a demo copy and you can light it up very quickly. We did only have 3 sales demos. We probably spent like the least time in sales demo of any customer and the most time in piloting. We did have pre-sales support, you know, where we were actually doing stuff and we had a few questions for support prior to us actually buying. It was huge for us. I mean, that really allowed us to make sure we made a good decision. So, you know, those were 2 elements that were essential and you should look at it, you know, if you want to implement quickly. Benefits of workflow, and what are the benefits of workflow, right? And we kind of covered these pretty closely, but I just wanted to bring a slide to make sure I hit those home and why that's better implementation, right? We were able to ensure proper accountability, right? Because sometimes items are orphaned in the workflow if you don't have, or orphaned in the call queue if you don't have workflow. So with huge and good workflow, you know, you can very quickly identify items that are not being worked on or not being helped. And you can get time of a queue of a call in a specific status, not just time the call has been in the system, but time that it has been in development or time that that call has been in QC. That's huge because you can analyze where your bottlenecks are and how to improve them. Specifications from the respect of our company, we talked about where we had support in QC and development and we could not easily pass specifications between them. And TechExcel, with its ability to attach and drive information into the call queue, has allowed us to keep our specifications inside of TechExcel and easily move information between members of our team, as well as ensure collaboration with our customers, which is huge. We talked about support not having visibility to the call queue and programming. That's huge, and that's helped us tremendously. And, you know, through this whole process, it might be scary to give customers visibility to your system, but for us, that was the greatest benefit. We embraced a transparent system with our customers, and they really enjoy being able to see where their case is, what the status is, you know, not have to call us every time, just be able to click of a button in the web, go see what the status is. So that's huge. Training. You got to find a solution, and if you want to go in 90 days, if you're going to get this thing done quick, training is important, but you need to do groundwork before you train. Training should be quick. The groundwork for the implementation and the speed of the implementation, the key to this is when you train, you have piloted the solution extremely thoroughly, and training is not a discovery of process. Training is a validation that the people that are using the system can use it, not a discovery of how you want the system to be operated. You need to split very clearly your pilot from your training, or this implementation will lag on. You don't want to get a whole bunch of people involved in the pilot and act like it's training, and then while you're going through training, you're getting disrupted by, well, should it do this or should it work like this? When we went to training, we knew exactly how we were going to use the system. Now, we were open to change, but we had a very good map of how the solution was going to work and how it would get us our benefits for our phase 1 project. So confusing training and implementation is horrible, because you're halfway through training, you ask a question, it derails the whole learning process. So that's huge. Our product from a training perspective was easy to implement. Definitely, if you're going to get, TechExcel is a product you can implement in 90 days. That's definitely what we did. I mean, the ease of use of import, the ease of use of setup, those are all things you have to look for. Users did complain. They will always complain. I mean, I've been implementing software solutions internally and externally for about 20 years now. If you go through an implementation where you don't have user complaints, I would like to tell me what the industry is, because I'll go work there. Because, you know, complaints are going to happen by users because change is difficult for the human being. But, you know, I think our users saw the benefit. We clearly communicated what we wanted to achieve with this implementation, and then that mitigated the fact that, you know, there were some users that had to do more, but the benefit was huge for our management. So we clearly communicated, here's the 5 management objectives, here's why we're doing this, here's what this is going to get you as far as ease of use, as far as ease of information, as far as customer satisfaction, and, you know, this was huge for us, is clearly telling people this is why we're doing it, we are doing it, and let's go. That was huge. Our managers did fall in love with the product. Now we've kind of pushed it, flattened our org a little bit, but visibility for other people inside the organization to see what you and others are doing is huge inside of TechExcel, and that alone has massive benefit for your throughput and your quality. So that's huge. And after we implement, the world was a better place, at least for our customers. So, you know, like that was huge from the respect of training and quality. Go live, you know, that was a so what event. If you pilot well, and if you do your data conversions early enough and you train on your data, go live should be a so what event where it's not that big of a deal. So that's huge for us. What did we get, right? This is the beauty thing. We didn't just get a call queue. We were able to change our business processes and spend enough time, move people out of support into programming, right? We were to reallocate our resource pool, and we were able to pretty much clear bugs. For the first time, we're at like 0 sub 1 and 2 sub bugs. We have 3 severities of bugs. So I frankly attribute that to workflow and visibility into our process. Integrating our billing, we did get that. So we got an integrated billing solution with our primary system. So we took it's very easy in SQL to pull out data from TechExcel, and we put it right into our billing system. We use their service track, and so we enter hours there, and then we push them into our billable environment. We did go from monthly to weekly billing because monthly billing was so hard for us that we couldn't do it weekly. With Service Track, people bill right as they enter time to the customer. So the weekly billing is massive. On collections, it turned our ARs faster. It turned the issues faster. It made people focus on their product faster. So that's huge. Weekly billing was great because when we billed people weekly, which was facilitated by TechExcel, we got increased revenue, increased collections because people remember what they're being billed for and all that in one. That was huge for us. We did reduce 2 heads, and we kind of moved them out of support into development. We took two support people and added 2 development people, so that's huge from us. Visibility into our production cycle, this was a massive gain. Like I said, we really can see what's going on with any call at any time and what the queues are. Happy customers, you know, our portal was huge, resolution and downtime was down, and SLA tracking. I mean, that's a huge thing in itself, and it's a side note for us. We're able to start to track and enforce SLAs. So that's huge. Mission clarity, fun and easy board and directors meeting. I mean, no one was upset with this install. Everybody was jacked. Everybody was talking about it. The speed at which we could deploy it was great. The cost was effective. We really don't have a lot of negatives. We're a pretty happy customer. And we talked about professional services earlier. Again, good quality. You got to find a company. If you're going to implement quick, you better have a company that can respond to you from a software perspective quickly with any bugs or issues. We only use 2 weeks of professional services for PSG. Now, you might have to use more. We are professional implementers too, so we have a lot of experience, PMP certified and all that stuff. But you might have to use more, but it is possible to get it done really quickly if you organize and target your goals. So, and when we brought the guys in, I don't think they were used to it. No one's used to it, but we had lists of questions for them. We pounded the professional services from TechExcel with questions from morning to night, and the one gentleman that we had answered the questions very quickly, very easily, and it was beautiful. So that was great. That was huge. You know, one thing I learned, what did I learn first? Set up your workflow first outside the system. If you start setting up your workflow inside of TechExcel first, you're dead. Set it up inside of a flowchart first in Visio, and then bring it into TechExcel. If you start trying to set up workflow in TechExcel without mapping it first, you're dead. USA, understand, simplify, automate. I learned this in my years working with Marmon retail stores. The Marmon group always told me, understand, simplify, and automate. Don't start writing workflow before you understand and simplify the process. So use this experience of implementation as a chance to understand and simplify your business before you start making requirements on the software. Workflow rocks. Workflow is the best. I definitely like that. Web-based deployment, only way to go. You need to buy a zero-footprint client, period. I love TechExcel. Personally, I think it's a very quality product. don't put a developer in charge of a product segment. That's the one thing I would laugh is those where we came up with the most problems. So if you are a developer or you have development experience, take that out of your head. I have development experience, so I tried to take that out of my head during the implementation. And then select a drop dead go live date and make it stick. From a management perspective, period, you say this is when we're going live. Now don't be a fool if it does look like it's going south. You got to stop. But really there's a lot of delays and you'll never see the end of excuses when you start the implementation. People always have reasons to not to go live. So anyway, took up more time than I expected. I hope that was clear with you guys. I'm definitely here to answer questions if you want. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, George. We really appreciate your presentation, your time, and your enthusiasm. We do, as a reminder, are taking questions. You can find the question thing on the side of your GoToMeeting app right in there and just type in your question. We'll answer them. We do have a couple that have come in right now, George.
Okay.
One of the questions was, how granular can you get with the workflow? For example, can multiple people be involved?
Yes, it's definitely anything to your liking. We had a relatively complex 100-step workflow process with multiple people, multiple groups, and we've simplified it since we started because that was crazy, but it can do anything that I've thrown at it from the respect of people and complexity.
Right now that you've worked at it, so you've explained how you implemented it, and so now having it for a couple of years, I wondered did you have any additional thoughts on the
Certainly,
last 2 years?
I think that the upgrades have been easy, which is huge, right? We continued to gain function as we implemented, right? So that's huge. And as we implemented, as we used this system, it gave us transparency into our workflow, and we were diligent about cutting our workflow steps. And so we've cut our workflow steps and our open calls. So the solution, if you use it diligently, like it in itself won't cut your workflow, won't cut your call queue and won't cut your workflow down, but if you use it diligently to identify and review your workflow and you continually push to reduce and simplify your workflow, you will do so with this product. I mean, this product will facilitate that because changing the workflow is relatively easy. I thought it was pretty easy. You can run into issues with it, but as anything, it's there is some complexity, but I thought it was relatively easy, and I thought we really were able to hammer through changes quickly.
That's good. How long do you think it took you to achieve ROI?
We thought within 4 months we had achieved ROI, and some of the hard ROI within 9 months, but soft ROI within 4 months. So hard ROI meaning headcounts that were removed was like 9 months.
Okay. And just one last question and if you didn't get a chance to have your question answered, we will follow up with you individually. And as a reminder to everyone, we are recording today's webinar, so we will send out a link of the recording to everyone in the next couple of days. But I wanted to ask one last question to you, George. Do you think your call load was reduced through the use of the customer web portal?
Absolutely. And really, too, one thing we did not talk about was knowledge base that was implemented subsequent. The knowledge base and the automatic suggestion of knowledge articles that solve the customer's problem, definitely independent of our process change, like just the product reduced our workflow because, the product could suggest a solution to the customer before they actually activated a call. And that would solve calls and reduce our actual volume to us, but, the system handled it on its own.
Thank you very much, George, and thank you to our audience who attended. And we appreciate this. We hope this has brought some insight and the best practices. And George is a great source of knowledge on how to set things up and how to do it right. So we appreciate that. And everyone, thank you very much. We will send out the link in the next couple of days. And have a great day. Thank you.
Thanks.